Splatoon 3 is an easy to learn game that also has an absurdly high skill ceiling. You can give this game to 3-year-olds and they can pick up the splat roller and just roll around. There are a lot of things to learn and improve, but I also think that anyone can pick up the game and meaningfully contribute to a multiplayer match. A big part of this is that Splatoon 3 just does an excellent job at teaching you how this game works. This video is part 2 of a series where I discussed the game design of Splatoon. If YouTube somehow missed that and recommended you this video before the first one, you might want to check that one out first. It is not necessary for the purpose of this video, but some things only peripherally mentioned here might make more sense with the context of the first one. Links are everywhere you could possibly imagine them to be. With that being said, let's dive deep into Firstly, let's discuss aspects that make Splatoon difficult. The most obvious answer is that Splatoon is a multiplayer shooter that is very fast paced, which means that for one, aiming is a big difficulty. This isn't helped either by the fact that you do not have a mouse and keyboard for your controls. Instead, you have a controller with motion controls, which give you a similar level of speed and precision for Splatoon's purposes, but feel very frightening and weird at first. Many casual players decide to turn off motion controls immediately after the tutorial, which is understandable but also unfortunate to see as they are so much more powerful than stick controls. Another difficulty arising from the fast pace of the game is that there is just a lot going on. Apart from yourself, there are 7 other players in your games that you'll have to keep track of, plus bombs being thrown, special being used, etc. If you had no idea about how this game works, what you'd see in these background clips is just chaos. Which I guess fits in with the game's theming, but that's not the point here. It feels overwhelming, especially when you don't really know how the game works yet, and keep getting splatted from some unknown source. Not counting scoped charges, there are at the time of recording 57 main weapons in the game, that are all unique and distinct. On top of that, every weapon has a sub and special weapon, and many weapons already have secondary kits. All these are things that new players aren't familiar with, that they have to be taught in some way. On top of not being able to execute tasks such as splatting opponents, new players lack the knowledge and vision to know what to even execute. To see how Splatoon addresses and teaches you all these things, let's go through the experience of a player who just bought Splatoon 3 as their first Splatoon game chronologically. You start in the crater, the tutorial that teaches you the basics. Interestingly, it starts with the customization of your character's appearance, and little buddy of course. I'm honestly not too sure what to think about that. From a game design perspective, I prefer when games directly start you into the action, to start by playing the game, like Tears of the Kingdom does it for example. However, this is the way it has been in every Splatoon game, and it makes sense from the perspective of the pacing of the crater tutorial as a whole. This is not some action-packed or cinematic intro, it is a tutorial so that players understand the bare minimum about the game. After that, it starts off with teaching motion controls. Controlling the camera is one of the most important things for players to be able to do, and motion controls are something that most players will not have come into contact with. Later during the level, the player will have to turn the camera. A lot. 180 degrees here, then again, then twice 90 degrees, then do a 180 again, to ensure players know how to do that. For now though, we are introduced to the core of Splatoon. We are taught that swimming in ink is faster than walking. We are only after that given a weapon that teaches us to shoot ink and then swim in it. The weapon that is given to us is the Splattershot Junior, which I believe to be a weapon that is specifically designed for new players. It is a shooter, Splatoon's main weapon class. It paints very well, it has a high fire rate and very bad accuracy, meaning that your aim does not have to be on point to hit the enemy. It has very good ink efficiency and even a 10% larger ink tank than other weapons. The rest of the level then is aim training, learning to turn the camera and learning about jumping, falling through grates, using bombs and climbing up walls. At the beginning of the tutorial, when you get your weapon, there's also a shortcut for experienced players involving the squid search and squid roll of walls that skips most of the level. This tutorial teaches you the game's core controls in a playful way. But one thing I'd also like to direct your attention to is the pacing. Notice how we are not interrupted by the text that's telling us what to do, and how the music builds up and becomes louder the further you go through the level. You then enter Splatsville, and here new players are given two options. Either play the story mode or go into the lobby and play Turf War. Let's first talk about the story mode. The single player hero mode is its own giant gameplay experience, consisting of 70 levels spread over 7 worlds, through which it does very well as an introductory game mode for new players. This is because the levels are much more relaxed and less chaotic than multiplayer battles, for the most part at least. Since this is single player, there are no 7 other autonomous beings with the same abilities that you have. It is just you and a level specifically designed to be beaten and make you have a good experience. Through the many levels, you also get experience with a lot of different main weapons, subs and specials. There are even entire levels dedicated to the Zipcaster and Inkjet, or to brushes or the Tri-Stringer. That means that multiplayer matches will be less overwhelming, since players know how these weapons behave. The hero mode takes time to beat, and during that time players will familiarize themselves with aiming, some with motion controls, others with stick controls. The only thing really to criticize here is that all the awesome and inventive gameplay mechanics present in the single player are nowhere to be found in multiplayer, not even during Splatfests. And that brings us back to Turf War. However, before being able to play anything multiplayer related, you enter the lobby and queue up from there. This is so insanely important, I genuinely can't believe that Splatoon 3 is the first Splatoon game to do so. During the time you have to wait for a game to be found, you can familiarize yourself with your weapon, sub and special combination. The lobby room offers stationary dummies, which you can test your range and DPS on, moving dummies to train your aim, and a whole lot of paintable ground to move around and charge your special. There even is the copy machine for things like the ink bag and umbrellas. A similar training room is also present in Salmon Run, where this is even more fleshed out, with different dummies for the different salmonids you will encounter, and even an egg basket to train your egg throw. Turf War itself is, as mentioned in my previous video, a great mode for new players to learn the game, because the win condition directly aligns with the core gameplay loop, namely inking the ground. It illustrates the concept of map and paint control, of movement, of the game's ammunition system, and of attacking enemies effortlessly through just the objective. The first few games you play are all with the Splattershot Junior, again because of its easy handling. Also notice that the starter gear abilities are Quick Respawn and Special Saver, chosen to mitigate the effects of getting splatted because new players will probably get splatted a lot, as well as Ink Recovery Up, since new players are not as familiar with swimming in ink to refill ammunition. Only after quite a while are you able to access the weapon and gear shops, and even then, buying new weapons and upgrading your gear is expensive and takes time. Splatoon's pacing is actually quite slow in that regard. It takes quite a while until players are level 30 and can finally unlock all weapons without paying triple the price, and even longer until you have enough Sheldon licenses to buy every weapon. Building gear is even worse, and here there isn't even a way to test gear out. I remember one of my first weapons I played being the blaster, and noticing that I was very close to being able to throw 2 auto bombs. I then went to Spike, added 2 subs of Special Saver onto my gear, only to notice it wasn't enough. I went back, added another one for 20 chunks, and it still wasn't enough. It is wild to me that there isn't a room where you can freely test out and analyze your build without having to go on sandu.ink/analyzer. To be clear, I like that gear is expensive to make, because it really adds a lot to the game's self-expression and immersion that every player you see has different clothing on. Let us also take a small look at the Salmon Run tutorial. I will make a full video about Salmon Run's design in the future, so I'll keep this short. The tutorial for Salmon Run involves Mr. Grizz taking you to Sockeye Station alone and telling you what to do. I think this tutorial does a great job at interactively teaching you the basics in a low-stress environment. Look at how there are even simulated inklings so you can learn about coworker communication. Mr. Grizz's interruptions can be a bit annoying, but Salmon Run is complex enough that these things are difficult to explain without text, so I'll let it slide. After that, you can even call specific boss salmonids to fight. Here players that already know about this from watching others or playing Splatoon 2 can specifically call the bosses that they don't know how to fight yet, or skip this altogether. In the end though, most issues that other shooters have, things that are difficult to learn in other games, are a lot easier in Splatoon. It is a lot easier to contribute to the game, because painting the ground is unconditionally impactful, whether it be by gaining space to move around or by charging your special. I have said before, and I still say, that aiming in Splatoon is easier than in other games, because some weapons have large hitboxes and enemies are generally closer to you and therefore bigger compared to other shooters. Because kill times are very short, it is more about gaining an advantage over enemies than a battle of who has better DPS and better aim. The rules of each game mode can be easily and sometimes intuitively understood because of the objective's visual design. How a weapon of the enemy functions can be deducted by, for example, its paint pattern and paint range. Same goes for the game state. If something is painted the enemy color, it is probably an enemy control. Just through the basic gameplay idea of shooting and swimming in ink, so many issues are already addressed. And what remains? The things that are impossible to intuitively show, are taught to the player in an engaging and fun way. Notice how, apart from the creator tutorial at the very beginning, the Semrun tutorial and the rulebook for the anarchy modes, you are never directly told something, but it is shown to you without you even noticing. Through the lobby where you can test out your kit whilst waiting for the match to start, through the single player mode where you are taught how weapons and specials work without even noticing, and through the whole core concept of shooting and swimming with paint. Splatoon teaches new players the game's systems in a way that is, in my opinion and experience, very elegant. Thank you for watching this video to the end. It is genuinely crazy to see how well my previous video did. I would have never expected to reach that many people. Thank you to everyone who left a kind or interesting comment about perspectives I didn't mention in the video. I'm currently working on the video about Semrun's game design and a follow-up on my first video, so make sure to subscribe if you want to see that.